Welcome to the Reconnected Podcast, a home for sharing, understanding, and growth for the retail grocery store industry. During each episode, we will meet an amazing member of our community as we learn about their story and jointly explore the intricacies and challenges of our supply chain. Through it all, we'll remember and honor that everything starts with the real people who spend so much of their lives supporting the retail food supply chain. We will bring together the voices of manufacturers, distributors, and retailers as we journey together to help our industry reconnect. My name is Abbott, and I'm excited to have you join us. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reconnected Podcast. And today I am joined by Kerry Song, who first and foremost is one of my best friends in the world, and also the founder and CEO of Abbott. Kerry, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, of course. Good way to start the day with you.
Right? I think so too. Actually, I was reflecting last night on the journey that I've shared with you over the last 4 years, and you know, I don't think about it a lot because I think we're all always running, but realizing that you're like one of my best friends, and thank you, Kerry, for being my friend.
I know it's been incredibly serendipitous that we met and then developed like a business partnership and an amazing friendship. So I'm extremely grateful. Very lucky.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely a really high point of my career since I started B-Driven. You were one of my earliest clients, and I thought we'd take some space today, and I'm again grateful. I know you are like the busiest person, like literally the busiest person I know, who probably only sleeps 4 hours, if even that, a night. But I would love to kind of start off by just maybe you sharing a little bit about your journey. I don't think you were always in the food space. Like I think you were far from it, and maybe in 2 or 3 minutes, like some of your journey, and then we'll kind of dig in from there.
Sure. Yeah, definitely more of an accidental entrepreneur. Never set out to look at the white space and analyze the market for what was missing and how we could fill it. Very nonlinear path to where we're at today. So I started Abbott's just really out of my own frustration with meat alternatives. I had been vegetarian for quite a while, vegan subsequently after that. And for me, it was really a decision made out of animal welfare concerns and also sustainability and the planet. Health was really just an afterthought. I figured that, well, don't eat meat, don't eat dairy, and I work out every day, must be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2010, I was diagnosed with a pretty serious autoimmune disorder and wound up in the hospital for 3 years, every 8 weeks, going in and pretty much going under every medication under the sun, trying to figure this out, and eventually landing on an immunosuppressant infusion medication that had quite a few side effects, lost half my hair, lost 30 pounds, was really just a shadow of myself. Even like a cold would turn into a flu. So I just had some serious health battles for a really long time. And when doctors were telling me you're going to be on medication the rest of your life, that thought was just incredibly daunting. I mean, every 8 weeks going in for half a day to get pumped full of this medication that just made me feel terrible. That was terrifying. And so I just started to dive into research. What could I do to take back control of my health? And the more I learned about my immune system, the more I learned about the importance of gut health. The more I learned about gut health, all roads led to diet being one of the most important factors. And I started to take a real step back and look at what I was eating and all the products I was buying and cooking and, putting it in my body on a regular basis. And especially when I would look at the ingredient labels of meat alternatives, I would see so many ingredients I could barely pronounce, let alone had any idea what they were actually doing to my microbiome. Things like methylcellulose and maltodextrin and even yeast extract, or even things as seemingly harmless as natural flavors or canola oil. And the more I learned about how they completely wipe out your gut flora, the more I realized, I'm like, wow, I don't stand a chance of taking back my health if I keep eating like this.
Right.
So I just completely overhauled my diet. I adopted a whole foods plant-based diet. And after just months of finding protein from lentils and black bean burgers and cans of chickpeas. I'm so over
Boring.
it. Yeah. I'm like, I'm done. This is not going to last. It felt like a life of sacrifice. And,
Right.
there were so many times I'm like, I don't even have time to cook. So you just like are eating peanut butter. And I'm like, this is not healthy. So I thought there needs to be more options, whether you're a vegan, vegetarian, or, omnivore, or just looking to cut back on meat once in a blue moon. There needs to be more options where you don't sacrifice your health. And so I thought, how do we make a plant protein that has a depth of flavor and the hearty mouthfeel we crave, but is made with ingredients that not only we understand and trust, but actually can go in and be functional and have bioactive compounds that actually nourish my body and help heal my gut. So that was the impetus for Abbott's. But yeah, I was not in the food industry at the time.
So what a journey. And I obviously know you well, and clearly the change over to this much more mindful diet relative to your gut biome, and then creating, Abbott's as it's like a byproduct or coming from this. But how does that then turn into Abbott's, right? Like, was it like, hey, I know what like plant-based is growing, and I'm going to go do this, or what
Not
were
even
the next steps?
because that was probably in 2014, 15, where there just weren't, it wasn't a thing. It wasn't being talked about. Plant-based wasn't even a term being thrown around. It was still vegan back then.
Right.
I think because it also married with a deep-seated passion for animal welfare and wanting to leave this world better than when, I came and found it, and have some sort of positive impact on the planet. I think that really helped become like a driving force for me. Because background was in corporate finance and then working in marketing. I was working for Tony Robbins at the time. And I started just creating these products first for myself and then sharing them with friends and family. And once it got to a point where I'm like, okay, this is good, I went to farmers markets. And then I would spend like nights in the commercial kitchen after work and then weekends at the farmers markets selling them.
And at that point, did you have a vision, like at the beginning of farmers markets, just like, I'm going to go create this CPG brand? Or
No, even then, the vision was so much different than it is now. And I think it's like constantly evolving. But I always said, if I can, change like one person's life and like show them like the power of food and not only how it can help heal their body, but they can more connected to their body and the food on their plate and like start to feel amazing and also live in a way that's kind and compassionate for all living beings. Like, that's
Beautiful.
enough.
Beautiful. I'm inspired. So okay. So you started at the farmers market, and how important and maybe what was the value of being in that venue versus just like, I'm going to create a product and get it on the shelves like Mother's in Orange County or something?
Yeah. No, it really was such an amazing experience. It was hard. Like looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I did that for 2 years, like schlepping your stuff every weekend to the farmer's market, like nights in the I don't know how I did it, but back then it was exciting because I'm like, this is a brand new product. I want to be able to talk to people and see what's really missing from their lives. And it was 2 years of just getting this amazing direct feedback and establishing like amazing lines of communication to the customers and seeing really like learning really about them. And I think the most important thing that Tony taught me is that, don't fall in love with your product. There's always going to be someone who's bigger, better, faster, stronger. You have to fall in love with your customer and then be innovating and like serving them before anything else.
It feels like such a practice of humility, right?
Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I felt like the farmer market allowed me to do, is really get to know the customer and what he or she was looking for. And so at that point, just really wasn't thinking. I thought, someday it would be great to get into retail, but I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I didn't know how distribution worked. I didn't know how buyers selected the products for the sets, none of that. So it was all very new to me and just very like, I took baby steps.
So who was the first step in retail?
Mother's Market in Orange County.
Do
So,
you remember the buyer's name?
well, it was Mo.
Oh,
She
Mo.
was,
Yeah. I just
yeah,
spoke to her last week. Yeah.
yeah. And she was amazing because I didn't know how this worked. And so I just showed up to their corporate office, which is in Costa Mesa,
Yeah.
and knocked on the door and then asked to speak to the buyer. And so, and I think they were so surprised because no one does that
Right.
they're like, yeah, sure. And she brought me right up and I just asked, could I bring lunch and cater your lunch for your office? And I'm like, who's going to turn
Oh,
down a
that's
free lunch?
beautiful.
This is
Yes.
pre-COVID, right?
Yeah.
So people were definitely open to that. And then, the next week I came in, got my mom to help me, cooked them all lunch at the commercial kitchen, which was, pretty close by, and served them lunch. And they picked up all the SKUs into 9 stores. So,
Wow. What was the shelf life back
yeah.
then?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, it was short. And there was just, I'll say, like a lot that I think I was not doing correctly. It was way too short. I mean, I was distributing myself. Like I was
Were you merchandising too?
probably at some
Yeah.
point, but no, I would literally pack a cooler. We'd make the products at the commercial kitchen, pack them up into the cooler, code date them, and then drive around every Saturday. And like my little car pulling up next to like the big Unify or KE trucks and
Wow.
delivering
I
the
never
cases
heard this
myself.
story. This is so
Yeah.
cool.
I say cool, but it was probably like the
So,
craziest thing.
so were you still going to farmers markets and working at
Uh-huh.
Tony Robbins? And
Mm-hmm.
wow.
Yep. Yeah. No, I had no personal life, but that was for a while, and then got accepted into an accelerator program run by SOSV called FoodX in New York City. And
I
so,
watched that video. I think it's on YouTube.
oh gosh,
It's-
cringe.
you did
Forget
great.
that's up. Yeah, that was like my first time pitching, So, and they're like, "You're going first." I'm like, great. So yeah, I would. It was tricky because I went part time at that point for Tony. They were great. They were very flexible with me, and I would fly out to New York on a Sunday night. I do a red eye, get there Monday, do the accelerator program like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday night, take a red eye back, and then be down at Tony's office on Thursday because I only had to go into the office once a week, and then come back like have Friday, Saturday, and I wasn't doing farmers markets anymore at that point.
Good point. Good job.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. And at that point we had distribution. We were introduced to Comfy House. And so Comfy House started distributing to mothers, and there was like a few other regional retailers that picked us up, like all natural.
I think I was missing. So you had to fly, was that weekly, or how often were you flying?
Weekly. Yeah. Every Sunday.
Week.
Yeah. It was brutal. And I had my dog, Dylan, had degenerative myelopathy, which is like ALS for dogs. And so she was handicapped, and I needed to take her with me. So she would come with me.
On the plane?
And on the plane. Yeah. And then I had an apartment I was renting in New York. So we would go stay there. She'd come with me to the office for the accelerator program. Like I even bought, there's no grass in New York. And I'd lived in New York before, so like I knew that. But like where the office was just like all concrete around the building. So I just remember buying like I'm like, you can buy a patch of grass off the internet and it'll ship to you. So I like planted grass around the building for her. But yeah, honestly, it's another thing I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I did that.
You're serious. You literally got grass.
Yeah. Yeah. I bought a patch of grass and planted it in front for her. Yeah.
Very practical. There's no grass. There will be grass in New York. That's Kerry. I love it. I love it. So, okay. So then you go through this process, and then I think there's a pitch, right, that you did at some point, or?
Yeah. And the great thing about FoodX is it really started to teach me like what it takes to scale a company and how to even think about it, and the necessary even components even to take that step. And they introduced you to a lot of mentors, and one of the mentors happened to be Dan Altshuler-Malik. So yes, and he obviously has become like a critical part of this company and, our growth. And Unovis has been so supportive as a VC. So that was really, again, serendipitous. And they didn't fund us right away. He got to know us. They took their time, which I appreciated. And then after FoodX went to go scale the product, they had given us a small stipend. So I had money from that I was able to go and hire an outsourced ops team and help commercialize the product. And then that's when Unovis led our seed round. So went and raised a seed round.
Got it. And
yeah.
was there another path? I'm curious about this because there's definitely in the current environment a lot of concern about VC money. I think that came from the bubble that we just kind of went through last couple of years. Was there any other path for you that you could see to accomplish like this kind of purpose that you had for making the world a better place?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, at that time, because I realized at that point, okay, I want to actually build like a larger company. Right. You can definitely bootstrap, and I'm sure there's ways to, get a loan and keep, obviously reinvest every single thing that you earn, but like grow slower. But, we had just won a contract to do a partnership with Tender Greens and be their first plant protein. And so like scaling the product for them also would require, more capital. Yeah. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good. And then, but you mentioned Dan, and I know him well. He's been a great friend of my company as well. Like there was a lot of value there was in terms of like taking money in a way from someone that had the experience and connections that he had, right? I mean, to do this on your own without Dan would have been a much more difficult process, I imagine.
Yeah, because they obviously also knew the plant based space really well, having invested in Beyond and Miyoko's and so many other companies like that. So, especially they've been incredibly helpful. I mean, really at every stage of this company of growth. So that kind of guidance and support has been incredibly, I could not have done this without the people I've met and who have helped along the way.
Yeah, huge. And you also, I think there's a shift that's happened now in the space where you play, where there's definitely this recognition. I think the world kind of realized what you realized many years ago and created a product around. But when you started, there wasn't that same level of awareness. And were there headwinds? Because people were like, oh, it's all about Beyond and Impossible.
Oh, yes.
Who are you?
Do you know how many investors told me that it was like, they're like, no, you need to have IP and we need to see something that's, it's all about tech. And I'm like, who wants tech when it comes to food? This is food. Like, this is something that the whole purpose, other than enjoyment, is to really be about nourishing your body. So I don't need to be dazzled by technology when I, serve the food on my plate to my family. And there were a lot of investors that sort of like balked at the idea of, creating food from like scratch ingredients.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how the world has caught up to you, I think. And there were early people, like early on, like Monica Coyle. How did you meet her? She was the forager at the time, I think, for SoPac Whole Foods, correct?
Yeah. So that's a good question how we originally met, but we started to get in touch and we started to just grow, really focusing on the Southern California market, really trying to build brand awareness and, establish a name for ourselves there in Los Angeles and Orange County. And we're even written up in the LA Times at one point. So she had reached out and we had an intro call. And then this actually was so timely because she onboarded us. They invited us to be part of Whole Foods SoPac right as the pandemic hit and food service came to a halt, because we really started to scale and focus on food service because there was a lot of opportunity for more options, because a lot of restaurants were starting to see, okay, this is where customers are heading. We don't have a lot of options except the usual like tofu and beans. But then obviously once COVID hit, that just came to a standstill. Distributors went into liquidation mode. I mean, the whole world obviously came to a screeching halt. So we pivoted pretty quickly and started producing for retail. And then August of 2020, we launched into Whole Foods SoPac.
That's huge, and great to have a partner like that, and great to be kind of early on in Whole Foods, which then that relationship has only grown, and I believe is national today. And
yeah, it's truly one of our most important partnerships, and we're so lucky to have their support. And yeah, so we grew from SoPac to NorCal, and then to 6 regions, and now global with them, and then have such a great relationship with them. We even, developed our new veggie burger for them to launch exclusively, that we just launched this spring.
Congratulations. And as we see you now, it feels like all the dots always connect in retrospect. But in the moment, things don't always seem that things, and then any given moment as you're on that path, they don't seem like we're going right. And I'm remembering when you launched into Whole Foods, and I remember the original velocity numbers were like 3 or something, and we were told by Parker Brody at the time, who was the global category manager at Whole Foods, you need to be double digit. And so, like, how did you approach that relative to the gap? Like, how am I going to? That's a huge gap.
Yeah, it was all for us about testing and learning. And yeah, those initial velocities were very low, at least a few below category average, and even the category average was well below double digits. But I love that he set that goal for us.
Yeah, he did.
We worked really diligently to just test and learn with what marketing levers could help not only just bring the brand awareness, but like also drive that traffic and like target that customer, that like health-minded flexitarian, into the store to look for our product. And it took a little while, but we were able to get to that goal, which was great.
But it wasn't just the marketing, right? There also you were changing packaging, I think SRPs.
Yes, that's right.
I think you were pulling every lever, and in a very humble way. It's like, it isn't like you didn't start off and say, this is the right product at the right price and the perfect packaging, I'm done. Whatever happens.
It's we really believe in like constant, never ending innovation and improvement. So we're constantly taking the feedback, learning, and really making small tweaks. Like even the products themselves, they have really evolved over the time to just better serve the customer. That's why we just never get complacent with anything. I always think things can be better, and how do we continuously improve? And that's like a core tenet of our team. Like, we will never sacrifice quality for cost. There's no shortcuts. We only make changes if it really does benefit like the quality of the product and the experience.
Yeah. And I've seen that firsthand. And so we're here today, and stores many stores are shrinking their sets, right? Or the kind of what I call the vegan ghetto, or the plant-based refrigerated sets. And there's a lot of products being discontinued. So many companies have gone out of business, and you're still here. And I'm just kind of curious, like, how is Abbott's doing in this crazy headwinds that are going on in the market today?
The thing is that we don't really, let me see if I can articulate this correctly. We don't really consider ourselves, we don't like pigeonhole ourselves into, okay, we're a plant-based protein. That's never been our whole approach. Our approach is very different. It's very rooted in wellness, and this idea that we're not trying to be this meat analog that replicates its animal counterpart to a T. Doesn't need to bleed, doesn't need to have the like metallic flavor that beef has. It's like, what do people enjoy about ground beef? Oh, they love that earthy umami flavor. Okay, well, how do we do that with porcini mushroom and onion and tomato and balsamic vinegar? Or people love in chorizo, they love the zesty brightness and the subtle smoky heat and the chili, that pop. And so, okay, let's use chipotle chilies. We imported Spanish smoked paprika from Spain and use tomato and onion and garlic and red wine vinegar. So everything is again, like meant for flavor and function, because there's a lot of like beneficial like superfoods that we use and antioxidant rich spices and herbs. So our whole approach, we always say like it's about wowing them with the depth of flavor and the mouthfeel. And it's just like really delicious, good food that is great for your body. Oh, it happens to be made from plants. That was our approach to it, is making it from plants. So for us, you know, it's difficult when people are just kind of lump you into a category that's in decline, when we've always felt like we're doing something different. You know, and it's not just, you know, relegated to this one little thing, right? That was a fad or a trend, you know, of the moment. So for us, this is like a way of life. And I believe that this is how all food should be. I really do believe all food in the grocery store should be made with clean ingredients, because this is food. This is what people are feeding their kids.
Right.
And so for us, we've seen consistent growth last 12, 24, 52, because I believe this is where the consumers are heading, especially Gen Z and millennials. They don't see wellness as just, you know, working out or, you know, even like just mental health.
Right.
It's everything. It's holistic. Yeah. And so they're even seeing, you know, the food that they're putting on their plate as part of their wellness practice, and it's become really important to them.
Which is beautiful if you think about it. I feel like consumers are becoming much more conscious of what they're putting in their bodies, and it's almost like for so many years, maybe decades, it was like fad driven. It's like, oh, everyone's gluten free, but if you ask someone like what gluten free means, they couldn't, you know, what does gluten mean? They couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
And then it became like, oh, it became cool to be plant based, and so that there was these cool products that were analogs, and there was kind of a, I don't know, it was kind of exciting and new, but people still weren't looking at the ingredients, and now they are. And I love where your point is like you make food, whole food, and it's not meant to be an analog, and it's meant to be something that's not a fad. This is something that you can make as I guess you used to use the term everyday essential part of your life for the rest of your life, and in good health. It feels like does that
like
resonate?
if you're whether you're, you know, a strict vegan and, you know, you want to have your favorite recipe that you grew up with, or you're flexitarian, you're having pasture raised eggs in the morning, you want more flavor and some health benefits, add the chorizo. So whatever your kind of like path is, like finding a way for our products, it's really, for us, it's just about being a part of their lives and something that they can feel good about, and obviously good after eating.
Yeah, beautifully said. And one of the things I like to dig into on this podcast is struggle. I think there's like this idea that many people have that like I'm the only one that's struggling, and there's a lot of founders and other leaders, just people in our industry who watch this podcast, listen to it. And I'm curious if you're able to share and can recall maybe what has been your biggest struggle, or maybe moment of struggle that you've had as you've been growing Abbott's.
It depends on what stage. I mean, it's like I could answer that like I'm like there's weekly struggles, literally, you know. But then there's also been different problems at different stages of the company.
Yeah, let's say in the last year, like what was.
Oh, gosh, I think I'll speak about the category. It's something we just touched upon. It's like this stigma around, you know, anything like quote unquote plant-based, and, you know, even the terminology and the languaging and learning how to cut through the noise and reach the customer and help educate and inform. I think that's a struggle. But then there's like, you know, trying to find the right ways to, you know, the bigger your team gets, obviously the more challenges that can have, especially when half the team is remote. So everything from like developing the company culture to making sure that you're working closely. It's we have a high touch team, as you know. And so how do I also allocate my time most efficiently to also be there for each department? But then I have a tendency, as you know, to also want to get in the weeds and be there alongside them. But that also is not the most efficient use of time. So I think there's so many challenges as a company, as a category, or as a founder that you're constantly learning to
And I
get
think
through.
that thing you mentioned about being in the details or in the weeds is a real difficult one, right? Because it at some point, like, you're a relatively small team. How many team members are there right now?
12.
12. So I mean, definitely grown a lot since when I first met you, and yet still small, and also you're growing so fast, right? Like, the company is a different company than it was 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. And I think that how do you find the balance between, and I imagine something you're probably figuring out, right? But it's like, how do you find the balance between how deep to go in the weeds and when to trust and verify?
Yeah, I think the thing that I've learned the most is the importance of having the right team members in place, the right leadership, because I need to be able to really depend on them to know and trust them that everything in the weeds has been covered.
Yeah.
And so we can speak more strategically and like inform on the tactics as well. But I think it's just finding the right people. That's, and it's not been easy, but we have an amazing team now. And so it's great when that happens, because you can take a step back and, it's easier to prioritize.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's interesting you're talking about that. What's bringing it for me is a book I read called Predictable Success. I think I may have shared the model with you many years ago. And it's this idea that in order for a company to have predictable success, it needs to have this balance between the visionary and the operations. And I'm curious, like, this kind of operations process driven person. Are you more? It seems like you're more visionary. That's kind of the gift you bring in some way. Is that fair? And I'm curious, like, who's the operations side, if that's the case?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I call myself visionary, but I guess I'm just not the more operation minded part of this outfit. So, yes, we went through, a lot of challenges, a lot of a huge learning curve for me, to be able to find the right person. But we eventually found, a gentleman named Sujit Sunrivas, who joined us, as our SVP of Ops, and then was quickly earned his spot as our COO. And he's been instrumental to this company's growth. Credit him with, everything from he really helped us get to the next level. Having, I think, the right person in place that not only has complete command over, the manufacturing and operations and understanding the process, and can understand everything from food safety to the, tolling model to, how to just improve automation on the line, can think. So, he's an engineer he has an engineering background. So it was great. That really lent itself to just the way he thinks about it, and, streamlining, creating efficiencies on the line has been huge for us. But then just understanding biz ops in general and scaling a company, and, he's so collaborative too, and takes feedback great. So he's been, again, one of those people I've just been so blessed, and I feel like is very serendipitous that, helped us get to the next level.
Yeah, I know you talk a lot about people who are hungry, like willing to work, humble, take feedback, don't think they know everything, and then people smart. And it sounds like that's what Sujit, what you found, and then someone who's a consummate professional in knowledge in what he does, and imagine that sounds like it frees you up so much to go do what you do best.
A complete operations is, I mean, Sujit will always liken it to them being in the background. So he's like, as long as we're doing our job, sales, marketing can shine. So, and they do. I mean, they're, operations, there's fires that come up every week, but they are it's like water off a duck's back. I mean, they're just handling it, keeping their cool, and, making sure things continue to move forward. But having that trust gives me a peace of mind that allows me to step back and focus on other areas that need my attention.
Yeah,
and it's been such a gift. Yeah.
And my sense is that you're pretty focused on the marketing side and of the business, and in that sense, that's a genius for you. I had Ari Raz on this program a few weeks ago. I
Hmm.
think you know
Hmm.
him for Coconut Cult, and they have a very unique way in terms of how they do social media and building community. And I think your approach is different. And I'm curious if you have space to kind of articulate like what is the approach Abbott's takes in this space? Because I think a lot of people are trying to figure this out. Like, how do we build community building?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for every company. And I mean,
Mm,
the community and like brand loyalty is something that's so important to us, and like how we continue
mm,
to not only identify and reach out to the new customers, but then how we continue to like nurture them
mm,
once they do become customers, because there's no better sales or marketing team than a loyal, like raving fan customer.
mm,
They will be word of mouth. They will echo it authentically on Instagram and TikTok. That is really what we pride ourselves in, and having those types of customers. And the
authentic voices, I guess. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I've just never been a fan of anything. We've done influencer relationships before, but we only
Mm,
do them after they've actually come to us and said, like, we actually really like your products. Um, would love to work together at some point. Or have like posted about us before. I've never felt comfortable going and paying somebody crazy amounts of money to post about something that they can't really speak authentically about. Um, it doesn't feel right, and it doesn't feel
mm,
genuine. But I mean, everything that we try to do, we really think about the customer experience from,
mm,
from the packaging and obviously the product, but
mm,
then, okay, they're taking it home. How are they cooking it? What other services can we provide to help them cook it? To help to know what to do with it. And then how do we continue to like bolster that with the education and, help them
mm.
like already start to see, okay, not only does this taste great, but like, look what it's doing for my body. Um, it's really for us, it's like just thinking holistically about the customer and, trying to have touch points along the whole journey.
I love it. I love it. And do you believe that, like, you don't do D2C directly, right? You
Hmm.
don't, right? As a refrigerated brand, obviously very
Hmm.
difficult. But do you believe that what you do in, like, in Instagram, for example, that and beyond people who've discovered you can actually lead to discovery?
Um, say
Like
that
like
again.
like like in terms of like Instagram as a community for people who maybe have
Hmm.
discovered already are fans of the product. But if
Hmm.
there are people, do you think Instagram can be leveraged today effectively to drive new awareness of the brand? People who haven't discovered you yet.
Yes. I mean, absolutely. I'm starting to think that I'm by no means a social media expert,
Yeah.
but TikTok has been a great platform for product discovery.
Hmm.
But Instagram is easier to build a relationship with a customer.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and I just think that the influencer model, at least from what I've seen in my personal experience, is that when it says ad, it just doesn't feel always as
Yeah.
authentic as like when they're, just posting organically, or they're a partner of the brand, something
Hmm.
like that. So, I think, people want authenticity. They want transparency and authenticity. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do, and yeah, I think I see that across multiple brands. I think that was what Ari had shared too.
yeah,
It's just, right, the founder sharing the story about the product. I love it.
yeah.
Well, it's okay. So you seem to have figured it out, and maybe
Well,
you
I
can
don't
tell
know
us
about
your
that, but
secret, Kerry, because you're leading, arguably one of the most successful in terms of performance in the market today. Brands and kind of what it used to be called, at least, the plant-based space. You're a wife, a daughter. Right? You talk about your mom, and then you also you're doing everything, and you have a baby Rob. And how do you balance
hmm.
all this? Because I sense you do it all well.
I don't even know if I do it well, but I'm just very structured during the week. So I got to get up early if I want to be able to have time for myself and work out. And then my husband and I kind of trade off. So he has like Rob until 7:30. I have him from 7:30 to 8:30. We're fortunate to have a nanny that comes at 8:30. And then we work like just heads down the whole day. And then, 5 to about 7:30 is a very sacred time for me. I just turn computer off, phone off. I just dedicate it to being with Rob. And then after he goes down, we both work. I mean, we both have startups, which I think has also really helped.
Yeah,
because
you guys get each other.
Yeah, if you were 9 to 5, it's good and bad, because I think if he were 9 to 5, he'd probably want to kill me for like having worked so much. And I wouldn't be able to empathize either on his end when he's having to like work on a Saturday night.
Right.
But I think there's also, okay, how do we also make sure we have time for ourselves and like time for the family? And so that's what we've really been focusing on for the weekends. But it's tough. It's not easy. You're always kind of feel like you're burning the candle at all ends, but then what's the alternative? I don't want to put in less work, and I don't want to put in less love into my family.
Yeah.
So it's, you just kind of have to do it.
Well, I'm curious if like, baby Rob actually kind of created more balance in a way, because my sense is you might not have taken the 5 to 7:30 sacred time before to actually stop.
No, Mark and I look back and how crazy we used to be. And I mean, it's really good that we didn't have kids back then, because we really poured all of ourselves into our business. And I also think, though, I've learned how to just be more efficient. And, you used to have all the time in the world to, you could stay up till midnight working, and you literally pull like 14-hour days. Yes, there was a ton to do, especially with a small team, more, you have more of the tactical, and a lot of like BS stuff to like get done every day. That takes a lot of time. But you also just, I think because I had so much time, I don't know if I always used it wisely. There was probably things I like went way too much in the weeds with, when I could have like stepped back and, thought more high level. And Mark's actually been very helpful with that. He's very high level. And so he's always pushing me to like take a break and like think more strategically and outside the box, et cetera. But no, I think we definitely now, because it is so structured, have more time allocated to family and each other.
Yeah. So it's, I remember when you told me you were pregnant, I'm like, God, you work so hard. And you also I think you're even doing, I feel like you're doing even more in some ways in terms of like impact, and just doing it in a more like structured, focused way. And I think that's, maybe
and I think it's also become even just more, the business is more important to me than ever, because I really there should not be food out there that is laden with chemicals.
Yeah.
And then we feed it to our kids. That's not right. There's a reason that over 60% of Americans have a chronic illness. That's a crazy number. And if I'm not saying, I come from a family of physicians, so I'm not saying, nothing about medication or pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Time and a place, 100%.
Right.
But I don't think you can actually live a life of wellness and set yourself up for health and success if you are eating foods every day that have these ingredients in them.
Right. I think what I get challenged by with all of this is like there's like the almost like beyond like the food fads, there's like the establishment fads of the moment, and it feels like it's gut health today. But is that enduring? Is it real? And I'm curious, right? Is it just like, I feel like before we were told, like me growing up, it was like Crisco, and it was the hydrogenated oils and things, and we were told to eat that. And I don't know, it just seems it's hard to know who to trust. How do you know who to trust?
No, there's a lot of I guess conflicting information out there about, especially it's like, don't eat vegetables. It's just you live on a carnivore diet, or only keto, eat vegetables, and don't even touch a carb. There's so much out there. Look, for me, I've just seen firsthand the power of real food to completely heal and transform your life. I mean, I was really sick for a really long time, and then I've been in remission for over 5 years now. And like, every time I see my doctor, and like I have to go annually to get endoscopy, colonoscopy, and just to make sure everything is okay. And every time I do, I mean, he now encourages his patients to at least cut back on dairy and meat. And he says it's because of what he's seen with my transformation. So,
Wow.
yeah,
It's working.
yeah. So, I mean, gut health to me is not a fad. It's not a trend. It's not an opinion. It's the epicenter of your entire system. It's your second brain. It impacts your, not just physical health, your mental health, like your mood. There is so much that it really directly correlates with. It's critical. And so you think about like what is inflammatory, what is not. That's binary, right? So I think just for me, it's all about real food. And I just like to live in a way that, is honors other living beings on this planet and is not part of the pain and suffering. That's my personal choice. And so that's why I lead with plants, but everything I eat is clean. I don't buy things with natural flavors or canola oil or
Yeah. I was going to ask
any of that
you,
crap.
that was on my mind today to ask you about, because I remember us talking last year at the NRA, I think it was, you were talking about natural flavors to me, and you were giving me a lecture about it when we were walking down an aisle. And so I get asked about it a lot. Like, it was with a client yesterday who was launching a new product, natural flavors. I'm like, can we just not, like, what is it? Well, it's actually like an organic, natural guava. I'm like, well, let's call it out what it is. And I'm curious, like, what is your concern with natural flavors?
Well, I don't have as much of a concern. I still stay away from even organic natural flavors,
Okay.
but organic has a lot more guardrails and parameters around it.
Okay.
Natural flavors, the only requirement is that's derived from a natural plant or animal source. That's it. Whereas artificial flavors can be derived from a petroleum-based source.
Okay.
Other than that, 99.99% of everything else added, preservatives for the flavor, the flavor boosters, all that can be artificial. It can be chemical. So it's not that different.
In natural flavors, you can have artificial things.
100%. Literally, just the derivative has to be plant or animal based.
Wow.
Everything else, like they've even like found the same chemical compounds that are used in antifreeze in natural flavors. So it's such a misnomer. It's really deceptive because of course it sounds great, natural flavors,
Yeah.
But like there's like some energy drink right now out on the market and like the flavor is like cosmic stardust or something. It's like natural flavors. What the hell kind of natural flavor is cosmic stardust? You know what I mean?
That's a great example.
So, it's just it's really sad that the FDA allows people to call it that. Flavor companies to call them natural flavors. They're not.
Yeah, and ultimately, if the truth comes out, it causes consumers to just like lose trust in the system.
100%. Yeah, as they should. It's better to approach it being, like a little bit wary of all the ingredients, But it's on brands. It's a brand's responsibility, to say no and to choose that's why we develop all our flavors from scratch ingredients like spices and vegetables and herbs. Like you can do it. It's harder. It's more expensive, but you can do it.
Well, I remember you sharing a long time ago with me that you spent like months working on the spice profiles, like flying up to meet with the supplier. And it wasn't just like a 1 week thing, right? But to get this right without natural flavors was a lot of work.
Yes. No, it was, it was a lot of work because, even if you think about onion, there are so many different flavors of onion. And then sea salt, there are so many different grains, like sizes of sea salt and mesh sizes of black pepper. And then regions you can source the black pepper from. And each one of them obviously like impacts in the ratio you use things in and like how flavors combine with each other. And, we wanted the very certain Spanish smoked paprika versus smoked paprika. There was a difference in like the depth and richness of flavor. So it just took a really long time, years. I mean, really to get the flavor and,
These weeds mattered, right? Like this is where you go excruciating detail because it's experience.
100%. And I mean, it's probably the one thing ops wants to kill me about sometimes because I'm always like, what if we did X, Y, Z? But No. Ultimately, they're on board when they see the final result, but the constant tweaks
It's
can be
working. It's
challenging.
working. Yeah. Don't argue. Yeah, I love it. And part of this podcast as well is about trying to improve our supply chain. CPG supply chain has a lot that's working, and there's obviously always areas where we can improve. And I'm curious if you have kind of any areas for you that stand out, like in, I guess, in the present moment about our supply chain that you would like to see improved, whether it's like transparency or whatever it might be. Any themes that come to mind?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think obviously the movement away from additives and preservatives, even things as common as citric acid. For example, we work with our mushroom supplier. Would cook the mushrooms with citric acid because that helps get the pH to where it needs to be for shelf life. So we had to do, trials with them using just vinegar. And fortunately it worked, and we were able to replace that so that we didn't have to source something with citric acid. We would have found another solution, but it's, and now they're actually converting a lot of their lines to just using vinegar. So things can be done. I think it just takes, the right push, the right, need. And so I think if people are continue to be more vocal about what they want from brands, brands need to step up and deliver that.
Yeah, I think that's what people, actually, I'm thinking about doing a TED talk on this idea of how consumers vote with their dollars, right? The more money we spend on things that are not healthy, the more of those things we're going to get.
Yep.
And ideally, for the sake of our own health and our kids and future grandkids, right? It's like, I think we owe it. And for the earth, like ideally we would spend those dollars and vote those dollars in ways that support brands, like Abbott's that really, really are better for you and better for the planet. I think that's, I totally aligned with you. That's where we can do better. And I think it's like it's not just the brands, but it's also consumers. Because if consumers don't buy the products we produce that are better for you, then what are we going to do? So,
and that's the same on the same like token. We always say like the consumer in the customer is the hero here. This is the person that's trying to change their life. They're trying to change the planet. We're just happy to be part of their journey. It really does come all down. The power is in the customer's hands. What he or she does, the decisions she makes, the food she puts on her plate every single day. That's the vote for the kind of future she not only wants for herself, but like for her kids and for future generations to come.
And ultimately, I think I understand at least is that consumers in the long run will not sacrifice taste and texture. And I think that's, I'm thinking like the veggie burger you were talking about earlier. We could have produced something. You could have produced something that certainly just had, with a few iterations. But I'm curious, how many iterations did that take to get it right?
Too many.
Okay, I'll ask. Is it over 50?
Yes. It's over a year of constant work. And it's something I'm continuously working on, because I just always believe things can be better and better. And, we're listening to feedback and, I can't help myself.
Well, I would say, as a grateful consumer and friend, and investor in your company as well, I'm grateful for you and how you show up and for how you make the world a better place and for creating foods that are better for the earth and for animals and that my kids will eat. Because if they won't eat it, it's hard, right? Like, what are you supposed to do? And so, I just, really grateful for the journey that I've been able to join you on, and you inspire me so much. And
thanks, Luke. Same.
It's been I feel like you've only just begun, and I don't, not in the sense that you've like crazy hard, years in front of you of crazy levels of work like I've seen over the last 4 or 5 years of knowing you, but I think like what you've started is going to be part of a movement, and I hope that it continues because it's better for all of us, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that the more people that start to clean things up and really just think about customer first, the better off everyone will be.
Right on. Well, thank you for joining me today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
Let's see. Let me